It is April and I literally cannot get warm. Welcome to Utah. Hey beautiful babes, it's Abby J here, and I was filming some regular videos this week and I've got some awesome content coming out for you with my blue studio and all that stuff. But as I was thinking about the video that I wanted to release this week, I didn't want to do just one of my other videos that I have coming up for you, but I really still want to talk about what to do during this crisis of quarantine, because for me personally in the state of Utah, this week marks a month of being in quarantine and having stay-at-home orders. So today's video, in the spirit of still being in quarantine, still trying to make it through this really uncertain time, is what I call the maxed out capacity. So we're gonna talk about what is the maxed out capacity, how to know if you are at your maxed out capacity, and what to do about it. Because this happened to me this week. I had to use these tools that I'm gonna share with you this week to make it through this week of quarantine. So I really hope that these tips help you out, because this is what I am doing to survive and thrive this really uncertain time. So story time for you. A couple days ago, and I'm not even joking, like 3 days ago, I just had a day where I woke up and it felt like everything was so completely overwhelming. And it didn't matter what it was. I remember sitting there at the end of the day, I'm sitting on my couch. I just feel like I was so overwhelmed, and I was sitting there going, yeah, I want to quit my job. Yeah, I think I'm gonna quit YouTube too. Yeah, you know what? My house is a mess. I'm just gonna give up. Like, I'm not gonna worry about any of my goals. I am just like, I'm done. I'm giving up. Like, it was that overwhelming. And have you ever had a day like that where it's a pretty normal day, honestly? Maybe a couple more things are put on your plate, but you're just like, I'm done. I don't know what it is about today, but it's the straw that broke the camel's back, right? If you've ever heard that saying. And I had a day like that 3 days ago. And then guess what happened the next day? I went to bed, I woke up, and I had a really normal day. And I felt like I was good at my job, and I felt like I was good at YouTube, and I just felt like I was being a better mom and that I could handle it. And what was the difference? Honestly, I'm asking you, what was the difference, do you think, in those 2 days? Nothing. Nothing was the difference between those 2 days. But I was at my maxed out capacity. And so I bet you during this time of quarantine are getting really close to your maxed out capacity. So what is that? So how I like to describe it is, all of us have levels of stress that we can tolerate really well. And maybe you're somebody who's really great at like fast-paced work, or you worked in a stressful environment before, or maybe you know, your family's a little bit more like uptight, and that's the kind of like upbringing you've had, and so you have like a really high tolerance for stress. And so maybe working in a place that has like really hard deadlines and really fast, and you just don't know what's going to come at you, you thrive in that kind of environment, so you have this high threshold of stress. Maybe you've come from an environment where your family life was really calm and mellow, and you love to take your time, you love to do things like slow and right. Your stressful like levels might be a little bit lower. Like your stress cup might be a little bit smaller than somebody who's used to like chugging like a big jug over at like Maverick. If that's a silly comparison, but I like to throw that out there, that we all have different levels of stress capacities. So when we are thrown into a situation, and right now it's a pandemic, and that's kind of weird to say, but right now it's a pandemic for all of us. But you personally could have experienced this when maybe you went through a breakup, maybe you went through a divorce, maybe you went through a really hard time where you were super sick. Maybe you just experienced a really rough patch in your life for a couple of weeks or a couple of months, and all of a sudden your ability to manage stress, your stress cup, goes from like, okay, this is about how much stress I take and it never gets all the way full, to like, this is how much stress I can take. And my little stress cup is like a teacup. That's a way that I like to explain really quickly what this stressed out, your max capacity is when you're going through a crisis. Because all of us are in this really unique situation that all of us are experiencing this maxed out capacity at different days during this quarantine. And what I like to tell people to do is when you sense that you are in and reaching your maxed out capacity, like you cannot take on anymore, you are already feeling stressed, you're already feeling overwhelmed, and a good indicator of this is like what I did a couple days ago. You just want to quit. You're just like, I'm gonna quit my job, I'm gonna quit my passions, I'm gonna quit my hobbies, forget about having more kids, forget about being a good mom, forget about like all the goals that you set up for yourself. Maybe it's like a trip coming up, you're just like, forget about it all, like I'm throwing it in, I don't care anymore. That's a good indicator that you are at your max, that you are approaching this like maxed out capacity. And so we're in this unique situation where all of us have been thrown into a crisis. Most of the time you can go throughout your day and you run into people who maybe you know are going through a circumstance. Like you're like, oh, my coworker Sherry, she's going through a divorce. Like she is stressed out, and we see that, we know that, and we honor that in somebody. And typically in that example, we don't ask a lot of Sherry because we're like, you're going through a divorce or you're going through this really hard thing, so we're not gonna bother you about that, right? Sometimes we know that. Sometimes we go about our days and we don't know that. And have you ever had this experience where maybe you went and talked to a friend and you just asked them like, hey, do you want to go out to dinner this weekend? And they like blow up at you and they're like, why would you ask that of me? Do you know how busy I am? Do you know that I don't have any money? Like blah, 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 blah. That's an indicator that something's going on in their life that is making them at their maxed out capacity. So we're in this unique situation where all of us are at that. And sometimes you might be fine, like I was every other day this month, but sometimes you might not, and that's okay. So if you are at your stressed out capacity, here's some things that you can do. One, I want you to mentally make the mind shift, like change in perspective that you are at your max, and that's okay. So often, like the type of woman that you are to watch my channel, to be into personal development, to be pushing yourself really hard, you are all about like taking more on, you're about changing your life, you are about doing more and being better every single day. Sometimes we can't push ourselves like we used to. That's not about giving up, it's not about sliding back on your goals, it's about maintaining your goals. I said that funny, maintaining your goals. So during this time, like I love to use a health example because it's so black and white, but during this time, right, we don't want to gain weight, but I don't necessarily think quarantine's probably the easiest time to lose weight, right? So we just want to make sure that we are maintaining our goals. So whether that for you is a personal development goal, maybe you're working on some relationship changes, give yourself some breathing room, give yourself some grace in understanding that right now, while you are at your maxed out capacity, might not be the best time to try something new. It might not be the best time to really push yourself and go towards your goal. It might be the time where you just need to dig in and maintain your goal instead. Now that's really hard for a lot of us to hear because like myself, I'm like, I need to be going and doing. I looked over my 2020 goals the other day and I started to panic that I wasn't reaching my speaking gig goal that I had for the year, and my head just started to spin, and I had to take a step back and say, listen, the world, not just Abby J, the world is in a crisis, so I'm okay to maintain my goals. I don't want to slip back, so I'm going to keep up the habits, I'm going to keep up the routines that make me happy, that help me focus, that help me center, that help me keep my goals, but I'm not going to kill myself over trying to reach some expectations that I could have if the world was normal, if my life wasn't in crisis right now. I like to think about this a lot when I'm sick. I don't know if you do this, but when I am sick, I just want to curl up in bed and not do anything, and yet my brain tells me, oh, I know you're sick, but you should really get up and you should really try to be a good mom today. You should really try to, at least just walk around or just at least eat a little bit healthy, right? You should at least just try to do your normal things. And I have to remind myself, I'm sick. I can't go work out. I can't hit my goal of working out every day because my body is physically sick. We never stop and think about that when mentally, emotionally, we are maxed out. And it's okay to sometimes say to ourselves, hey, I'm at my max capacity right now and I'm just gonna maintain instead of trying to gain on these goals. The second thing that you should be doing when you are at your maxed out capacity is that you should be going back to the basics. Just be hitting the things that you know that make you happy, the things that you know that help you to be successful, and don't worry about everything else. I had to remind myself of this week when, I'm working at home, I'm now a full-time babysitter, full-time mom at home, full-time employee, and it's really hard, and I kept thinking to myself, I gotta make sure my house is clean. I gotta make sure my house is clean. I like a clean house. I had to take a step back and realize to not have a clean house every single day is okay, right? There's other things where it's like, oh, I'm not willing to compromise on that goal. Like I can still get a workout in even if like the gyms are closed, but I can, be okay with maybe doing my dishes every other day, right? So find areas where you can just go back, you can simplify your life a little bit and be okay with maybe some standards that you typically aren't okay with because you are at your max capacity. And lastly, this is my advice for anybody that I can sense is at their max capacity and is really frustrated with themselves because they feel like they can't add more in, they want to quit. My advice is to ask for help. It is 100% okay to ask for help at any time in your life for any goal, for anything that you are struggling with. And sometimes we feel like we can't ask for help because it makes us less than. It makes it so that we are weak, and it makes it so that we, are showing somebody else that we can't do it. That's absolutely not true. There is nothing in life that we can't ask for help on. So ask for help. Maybe during this time of quarantine, that you're asking your partner, your family members for extra help so that you can have some alone time. Maybe that is like asking for some extra study help from friends and you can get on like a FaceTime call and talk through some of your homework if that's overwhelming you. Ask for help. It is totally fine to need help, and not just during a time of crisis, not when you are at your max capacity. This is just a good time when we have to surrender and say, I can't do this alone and I don't want to quit. Deep down in my soul, I know it sounds really great to quit, but I really don't want to quit. That's when you need to ask for help. Okay, so in review, super quick. To sense if you are at your max capacity, 1, look around and see if there's something that's been heightened in your life or a situation that you're not used to. COVID-19, pandemic, staying at home. Maybe it's that you've gone through a breakup. Maybe it's that your family's going through a really hard time. Maybe it's financially you're really struggling. Just take an inventory of what is going on in your life and assess that. 2, it doesn't matter if it's for an hour, it doesn't matter if it's for a day, are feeling that complete overwhelm to the point that you just want to quit. And maybe you aren't working like I am, but it's like, oh, I'm just like gonna give in the towel. Like, how am I ever supposed to be a good mom? Or how am I ever supposed to be a good person or sister, daughter, or whatever, fill in the blank. If you feel like you wanna quit, if you wanna throw in the towel on your goals, that's a huge indicator that you are at your max capacity. And so be sure to ask for help. Be sure to go back to the basics and be sure to give yourself a little bit of grace, a little bit of time to maintain your goals instead of worrying about like gaining and climbing up that mountain, because your success is out there. It's not going to change. It's not going to go further away just because of this really scary time. We just need to be able to trust ourselves, trust God's timing, trust the goodness of God, and know that He has a plan for us and that our success is not going to be limited or less than because we had to ask for help or because we had to take a couple days, a couple months, a couple years off because we had to recharge our batteries. We had to get in tune to what makes us happy. We had to get refocused on the basics. All those things are gonna set you up so that when this crisis is over and you're back to normal, you're ready to gain, you're ready to progress, you're gonna be stronger than ever. So I really hope that helps you out. I as somebody who's been at their max capacity, I know that these tips have really helped me. So sending you so much love during this time of uncertainty, and I hope that you stay safe. Please leave me a comment on this video. Let me know what you're going through so I can do some videos during quarantine that might help you out a little bit more directly than some of my usual motivational personal development videos. So thanks for watching, and I cannot wait to see you in my next video. Abby J out.